Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Podcast. My name is Mark Devlin, and this is Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist podcast, going out live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And I'm here with my co-hosts, Niall Fraser and David Griffiths.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a pleasant evening.
Good evening, all. It's nice to be back.
Okay, and what are we going to be talking about tonight?
Right, tonight, gentlemen, I'll be talking about Scotland's truly horrifying drug death rates.
Yeah, and I'll be saying how far we can throw a Tory at the SNP's woeful party political broadcast.
And I'll be asking, what will I be asking? I'll be asking, big question, is Indy Deid?
Big question.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back in just a second. Hello again. As we usually start the podcast with a big thank you to our donors, the people who made it possible for us to do this podcast. We did a crowdfund. If you would like to donate, there's a link in the description wherever it is being broadcast. We'd also like to thank our distribution partners at United Against Separation and UK Union Voice for letting us appear on their Facebook pages. And if you're watching from there, please give them a thank you from us.
Yep, but please like, share, comment, get this widely shared. The more people that tune in, the more impact we'll have on this election coming up in May, and it will be on us in a flash, guys. It's just round the corner.
4 weeks today.
Yeah, and so you can also watch it on Facebook, and in addition to Facebook, you can watch it on Twitter and on YouTube. We'd like to get our YouTube numbers up, so if you can go there and subscribe, that would be really great. Last night we had a Majority Meetup in central Glasgow, and it went very well. We had councillors Ewan Blockley from Lynn Ward in Glasgow, and Malcolm Cunning, who is also from the same ward. They both came to the meetup and gave about 15-minute talk each on what they would like to do to improve local services. And I think everyone who went to the podcast really had a really entertaining and interesting time. What do you think about that, Niall?
So it was a very pleasant evening just to start off. I thought both councillors spoke excellently and they put across their passion, please. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both Ewan Blockley and Malcolm Cunning for giving us their time. Overall, you know, the stories we've received for the councillors hitting the doors, canvassing, that increasingly people are waking up to the SNP. They're becoming disillusioned with the SNP, and both councillors predicted big drops in SNP support across Glasgow, which is unheard of.
Yeah, it's quite something. I'm going to show a clip now of Ewan. Actually, he's been on the podcast before, and he's a friend of the Majority. So here he is.
This is probably the most important election I can actually remember in terms of local politics. Because so much is on the ballot paper. You know, we've seen over the last 5 years Susan making her competency, nepotistic, corrupt administration that has frankly failed. It's failed people of Glasgow.
So a wee bit of sound issue there.
Yeah, I think we've got maybe some sound issues there.
If we can fix that, we'll come back to that. We can revisit that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that could be a problem for us a wee bit later on as well. But okay, for the moment. And David, what did you think of what was your takeaway from the meetup?
Well, several things. I mean, my first impression was, and I've touched on this, what very accomplished public speakers both Ewan and Malcolm are. I mean, no script, no notes, just boom, never missed a beat, totally on top of their briefs, and both made very persuasive points, pushing their own party's agendas, if you like. Yeah. But it was good that they both agreed that the challenge facing Scotland and Glasgow, of course, is to rid the city of the truly dreadful SNP council under Susan Aiken, which was excellent. They saw that as the principal aim of this election. It was also pleasing that they didn't become, the discussion didn't become the tired old back and forth, red and blue, he said, you said, no, I didn't, that you see in Westminster every week. So that was good. And they both actually found time to praise each other at certain stages, which was heartening. But I thought it struck me that it was very encouraging. This is the middle of an election campaign. They only get a few weeks, and they both willingly took time out to come along to a majority event midweek in Glasgow. So I was very pleased, and I'm sure we'll have them both on the podcasts again in coming weeks.
Yeah, I think it was really quite good. We had, the thing I thought that was a really standout for me was that they've been on, these are campaigners who are out there on the doorstep.
Yeah.
And they're talking to people. Malcolm Cunning said he'd talked to 2,000 people and over the past few weeks. And so it was really a good opportunity for us to find out, really what people were thinking. Now, of course, it comes through their own filter, I suppose. But a big thing that Malcolm Cunning said in particular was that people were really not talking about any constitutional issues. They were really more interested in who's going to empty the bins, who's going to fix the drainage, who's going to do this, who's going to do this for us. We've got a council administration at the moment in Glasgow that isn't focusing on that. And they're not fighting against, another part thing was they're not fighting against government cuts. Now, how can an SNP administration criticise Nicola Sturgeon about, the local government cuts? They can't. So I think it's quite interesting to see that perhaps the tide is turning on the doorstep. Now, it remains to be seen whether that actually translates into votes, and that might not actually happen in this election, but there's definitely a movement, and we'll talk about that in a minute, definitely a movement away from the SNP, from disillusioned SNP voters. Peter Morris, he says they need to stay off the constitutional issue. In fact, that is very true. Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Niall?
Well, I mean, I thought it was generally a pleasant evening. It was good to see. It was a friendly environment. Obviously, we've got one party touting their line and another party touting their line. But we all agreed on the fact that we need to get the SNP out. It's brilliant to see, the youth in Ewan and, Malcolm's experience sort of intermingled, and they've met in the middle somewhere, which is get rid of the SNP,
Yeah, I think that was one of the
everyone
things
can agree with that.
One of the things we said at the end was, okay, we can, wouldn't it be great if the politics was just these two guys, right? A young guy, old guy, it doesn't matter who they were, but they have their ways, and what they're trying to do is actually improve what's going on in the city. And you can imagine, in the meantime, someone on the other side is saying, "Oh, vote for me because I'll give you this dream of independence." And so many people are attracted by that, but they're looking now and they're saying, "Well, you've promised me this independence dream, but on the other side, my bins aren't going to empty. There's rats in the street, and there's potholes everywhere." I mentioned that thing. I got a pothole. I hit a pothole in my car in Glasgow Street. £150. Repair costs. That shouldn't happen. I shouldn't be. It's not right. But that's being repeated in many areas across the city. Hope that we can. There will be some change. They don't need to swing that many seats. So
Yes,
that's true.
So I think there was another thing that Malcolm said. He was reminiscing about the 2014 referendum, and he said it was the most vicious time he'd ever been in politics. He said and this guy's been in politics a long, long time. I think it was 40 odd years he quoted. And
from 78. That's right.
Yeah, he had never had his car vandalised. He had never had this and that, but it happened in the 2014 election, referendum. Sorry. So, it shows you the toxic nature and what it brings out in people, the tribal nature, and I think Scotland would be best avoiding that. Best.
Of course, I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Right, coming up, we're going to have Niall. You're going to be talking about that cringy video that
Absolutely, I am
released, and then David is going to be talking about a subject that has been hidden a little bit by other news. It's Scotland's shameful drug deaths, and I'm going to be talking about is Indy Deid. That is coming up in just a second. Right, this week multiple polls came out that were bad news for nationalists. First of all, there was a Survation poll showing a drop in SNP support and just what we talked about there, a shift over to a rise in Labour. And if you look, this was from Survation, and you can see the numbers there. Something like the excuse me, I've got a message popped up. What was that? Constituency SNP 46% down, 2, Labour 25% up, 3, and in the list SNP down 6 and Labour up 5. And it's interesting from this to notice that the Greens aren't getting a big boost. Well, they're getting a little bit of a boost. So the question I think is that to talk about, and we've been talking about a bit on the show so far, is where are these voters going to go to once they are? Where are these voters going to? Will they come back to Labour? What do you think about that, Niall?
Well, I actually think Labour's playing a blinder here. In my mind, they stand to gain plenty by playing this long line. And I've seen Annis today pushing the line. Come back home to Labour. It's your home. Come back. And actually, I think that will actually appeal to disillusioned, disheartened SNP voters. I really do. I think he's playing a blinder, Annis.
Well, there's we've had a bit of discussion about this, because a lot of people on our side are still have that idea that they would like the Labour and the Tories to form an alliance to beat the SNP. And that's not going to happen. We tried that last year. Alliance for Unity, which you two were part of, was a big effort in trying make that happen, and it didn't happen. It could have happened perhaps under slightly different leadership, but as Niall says, there's a long game play here, and that means that if Labour are going to attract ex-SNP or disillusioned SNP voters, they have to not make a deal with the Tories, and they have to say, we're our own party, we are Labour, we're socialists, and we are not going to do deals with SNP and so on. Now, there's still some issues with that because they are in coalition with some councils. Yeah. David, what do you think of that?
They are, indeed they are. I think it's 6 councils in Scotland where SNP and Labour have combined to keep out Conservative. Edinburgh Central is one. But I've spoken at events with 2 different events with 2 Labour councillors who are both standing, and they've both said party orders are very clear. After this election, there will be no Labour council going into coalition with any party, be it Conservatives to keep out the SNP, or be it the SNP to keep out Labour. So, yeah, they have done it, absolutely, but apparently the word from on high is no more of that. So, yeah, you're right. There's no way there's going to be any joint Labour Conservative way to get us out of this. That's just not going to happen. So
last night, it was quite interesting. I wish I had the clip from it, but there was a technical issue. So where Malcolm Cunning basically said, no, we're not going to do that. No, and it was very forthright, and I wish we had it to show here, that they're not going to be making an alliance with SNP. They do not support independence. He has never supported. Well, he has supported independence. He was
back in the 70s.
SNP, quite high up in the SNP, but he realised that was not an actual path to socialism. So he, I think this idea of building what we call, I call it a golden bridge back from disillusioned SNP voters back to Labour is correct at this point in time.
It's a strong tactic, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so it remains to be seen. I think there's still so much cynicism about it, and I think one of the things that we can do, certainly, and one of the things that we will be pressuring the Labour Party to do is to say, well, if we see a candidate who does have pro-independence views, then highlight that, and we keep the party to its promises just as much as we would keep the Conservative Party to its promises or Labour Party to its promises when it comes to the Constitution. But okay, we digress. But back to the bad is Indy Deid. So next up, there was another poll, and that was done by YouGov, and basically it asked, should Scotland be an independent country? And that was the standard question. In that case, the results were 39% said yes and 44% said no. That's still quite a big difference. We've talked a lot about it before about the don't knows. The don't knows generally tend towards status quo. If you don't know right now, are you really going to take a risk? That's what it comes down to. So don't know voters generally go to no. Did you want to say something there, David?
No, not at all. That's true. It's the power of a positively framed question also. So yeah, there's no doubt that people who haven't made their minds up now, I'm not going to take a chance on it on election day. They're really not going to do that. Not with a fundamental question like this.
Yeah, and that brings us to the actual question. Here we can see that a big part of this poll was this: what's in a question? A different phrasing made a difference to people's response in the Constitution. Should Scotland be an independent country? Well, we already said that, 39%, 44%. But should Scotland remain inside or leave the United Kingdom, which is, it's the same question.
It's the same question.
Yeah.
Then remain in the UK, 50%, and leave the UK, 35%.
Amazing, isn't it?
I mean, like David said, it shows you the power of framing the question, to alter it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
And you get an almost entirely different result. It's insane. Remember there was the question on the ballot last time. They were fighting in court about what question they should ask. Or what question should be allowed to be asked. And they ended up settling on should Scotland be an independent country, and still losing.
Absolutely.
So they were trying to trick us there.
It's a leading question, right? So the remain leave question is also one way to put it, and I think most people would agree with that because we're putting it that way because that's the way the European referendum question.
Yes,
that's true. Exactly.
What do you think the results would have been 2014 if it was that question, remain or leave?
I think it would have been. I think it would be more like something like 61-39, something like that. Yeah, I really do. It would have been as comprehensive as Scotland's Brexit vote, which was 62-38. So yeah, I always that was the result I was expecting. Got a little bit closer. It was still, let's not forget, it was still a very comfortable victory for the no campaign, because it was 55.1 to 44.9. It wasn't even 45. But I mean, this is the fact that we're still having this discussion, if you like. This is why Alpha Unity last year, our flagship policy was to have a Clarity Act legislating any future secession attempts, because it shouldn't be that matters as fundamental as the actual questions wording should be like a bargaining chip, as it was when Cameron and Salmond between them came up with this pile of nonsense in 2014, when the leave side, the yes side as it was, got all of the advantages, including the framing of the question, the age of the voters, etc., and they still lost comfortably. So there's no point giving them all those advantages again. There's certainly no point in leaving it up to court decisions at the last minute. It should be enacted in law. I still believe that. I know that not everybody does, because it almost authenticates the suggestion that you might want to secede, but I'd see it more as a protection against secession attempts. So I'm still in favour of it personally, and I would get rid of all that, but that's just my view.
Well, perhaps I think it's one way. I think it's a step, possibly. I think it's something to consider. We have to say, all right, as the support dwindles for this, what action can actually be put in place to stop it happening again? I mean, let's be real. A Clarity Act really is to try and stop it. So if we really just want to stop it, maybe we should just stop the idea of secession entirely. That's a discussion that's like for a different day, I suppose.
Indeed.
The polls just not very good at all for the SNP. Here we have clarity of purpose. Okay, on every issue regarding and every issue, except for one which is the top one here, which is whether or not an independent Scotland would join the EU. And everyone, only about 20% to 25% of people say that the SNP is clear on the topic, and that includes currency, only 27% clear, border, 27%, pensions, 23%, cuts to spending, 23%, Trident, 23%, and new
absolutely pitiful.
I mean, imagine this. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, imagine this is after 15 years in charge of their one flagship policy, which they've had 8 years to refine their policies, the components of their campaign. They want a referendum next year, and this is where the country stands on it. There's no way they could possibly, you could not possibly hold a referendum on the basis of this nonsense. Any strategist looking at that would just laugh at you and say, come back to me when you've got some clarity. Seriously, guys,
it's pure madness. It's pure, even the fact that it was, to almost 25% of them don't know what's going to happen. They have no idea what's going to happen.
No.
Only 25% of them think they know what's going to happen.
And all 75% have no idea. Right, okay, right. It's even worse. It's so strange that, like David says, it's their flagship policy. Yep. And what 75% of them are not clear about what it actually entails. What are we doing? What are they doing? They're leading voters down a really horrible, dark rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, I think
the disillusionment's going
to. People are beginning to see. Well, there isn't any clarity of purpose in this thing. There's one, and that purpose can't happen. Excuse me. So maybe it's time to move on. No, so with all this terrible polling, terrible scandals, and so on, can we say, fellows, that Indy is dead?
It's stone dead. Stone dead.
It's if it's not dead, it's badly wounded, fatally wounded,
and dying.
Exactly.
It's dead. What do you think, Mark? Dead or not dead?
I don't know. Because as my mum says, it's dead, but it won't lie down.
Well, to be fair, it's the horse has been dead for ages, but we just keep rattling it. You know what I mean? Just keep flogging it. Yep.
I think we need people on the doorstep, people in the polls are beginning to wake up, perhaps, and say, "Well, we've had enough of this."
Yeah, a lot of great comments coming in as well. It's a circus, and it's election con again. A lot of great comments. Somebody said earlier on, what about the Arbroath car boot sale? Made me laugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Please send in your comments if you have something to say about is it dead or not? Is it like the proverbial dead parrot? It has ceased to be. It is gone to the choir invisible and
join the choir invisible. Yes.
So moving on. Right, David, you're up. Tell us about drugs deaths.
Yeah, and I always try and inject a little bit of humour in the stuff I talk about. But today's different because there's nothing remotely light-hearted about this topic. This is Scotland's truly shameful drug death rates. Just this week, an article on Scotland's drug deaths was published by what is called an independent think tank, which I hadn't heard of before, named CIEO. Anyway, I looked into a little bit of the organisation, but what struck me first was the article, which was a real eye-opener on several grounds, really, because it stated several facts which I was completely unaware. One is that in Scotland, we know Scotland has a dreadfully high rate of drug deaths, but I bet you didn't know that methadone accounts for almost 50% of all of Scotland's drug-related deaths. Now, first off, to say that figure has almost tripled since 2015. So in other words, in 2015, it was 18%, and now it's 50%. And that's more, just to give you a comparison, that's more than double the rate of the United States. And we know there are vast swathes of the United States where people, drug use is absolutely endemic. So this is, for Scotland to be doubly as bad in terms of one particular drug is quite staggering. But what's even more worrying is methadone is a drug administered by GPs to reduce the user's reliance on heroin. So in other words, you give people methadone to get them off heroin, which is an appallingly deadly drug. So in other words, half of Scotland's drug deaths are caused by legally prescribed and dispensed drugs.
Absolutely.
Just an aside, I thought that a lot of the drugs were the deaths were caused by street Valium, right? That was part of that big thing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, this focused more on this site. They didn't mention any other drug in particular, but what they were talking about here was the fact that it's Scotland's drug policies, really. Now, as a reference point here, you'll remember the novel Trainspotting. You'll all remember it, which came out in '93. The novel, and in the novel, in the film, there's a very famous scene where Renton undergoes cold turkey. His mum and dad lock him, literally hammer nails into the wall, the door to keep him in his bedroom. And he's screaming at his mother to give him methadone. She says, no, you can't find, you're worse than that, you're in heroin. You said it yourself. Now, that was 29 years ago. The cast of a movie knew that methadone was deadly. But now Scotland's GPs are dispensing it, and it's killing users. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
It's shameful, David.
Yep.
Now, you have some experience with the charity, I think.
Yep. So I've volunteered my time with a charity called Blameless that deals with the children in the shadow of addiction. So, I mean, it's not just the end drug user that gets affected by this problem. We see all the drug deaths, yes, but these are mothers, fathers, there's somebody's daughters and sons. So each one of these deaths is an individual tragedy. Individual tragedy, and we never ever think about the children that are caught up in the shadow of addiction, you know. And I think the SNP's approach to tackling the drug epidemic is it's completely in the wrong direction for me. You know, they're pushing an anti-overdose product called naloxone in a vain attempt to just stop overdoses when it's like sticking a plaster over a gaping wound. You know, it doesn't even come close to nearly addressing the cause, the fundamental cause of the drug usage, you know. And what Scotland needs right now is more rehab beds, and a campaign to promote total drug abstinence. That's what we need now. You know, it doesn't take an oracle to see this. Come on. We shouldn't be just giving out naloxone to everyone just in case we see somebody having an overdose. Come on.
Absolutely right. And
it's
I
so
think
wrong.
The article states here that those who advocate the Scottish approach are actually argue against the idea of abstinence and prohibition as appropriate approaches to drug treatment. In other words, they're saying under the SNP government, Scotland's health service leaders do nothing to discourage the use of illegal drugs. Now, I know this exactly. I know this. I've spoken to recovering addicts who say the 12-step program saved my life, and I know that works.
The tried and true method of sobriety. That's it.
Absolutely.
There is no other. There is no other way. And you know, we do. I'm at the Hamilton Accies tonight. 7 o'clock. We've got all the different recoveries. We've got Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotic Anonymous, Family Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous. They're all going on ongoing simultaneously to this podcast. And we need more of that. We don't need naloxone training.
Absolutely right. And I'm fully supportive of that. We've spoken on this show before about my opposition to the SNP's flagship drug policy, which is safe consumption rooms or shooting galleries. And again, the introduction of these, they wouldn't discourage the use of drugs at all. Quite the reverse, in fact. They would encourage use of it. And this is at a time when Scotland's drug deaths are spiralling out of control. And to me, this is sinister. This is like the SNP saying, "Oh yeah, some people will die."
What do you think is the core reason that the numbers are higher in Scotland, Niall?
Okay. The SNP government have made this place miserable.
Yeah,
absolutely miserable. See, if just say you live in Port Glasgow, and you know you want to work on the shipyards, but you know all the contracts go to Turkey. What are you going to do? You're going to. I mean, it's destitution and poverty that brings this. It's ultimately a class thing. You know, there's rehab beds available if you've got money. If you've not got money, there's nothing. There's nothing available for you.
Absolutely,
it's shocking.
I think it's to a great extent. I think it's a geographical thing. You see terrible rates of drug deaths in places that you wouldn't expect them, like Millport, for example. last year, I was involved in a discussion where the biggest problem affecting Millport these days is youths who can't even get across to the mainland, and they're just taking drugs and they're dying. It's absolutely appalling. So
That's
I think
some really great comments here from Peter
Yeah.
Morris.
Yeah.
We saw them coming up there. That people are, just getting their methadone and then going out to their dealers.
Yep.
And yeah, this is actually, I think, an important point here is that not one person held to account for the deaths of thousands of citizens. There's no
Absolutely.
public inquiry. There's nothing.
Absolutely right.
Nothing to say how it's happening and who could help and why they're not helping and what is responsible. I think you mentioned here, David, that we should get the UK government should step in.
Absolutely right, because the whole premise of the article is to say that under the SNP government, Scotland's drug use policy is to make utterly ludicrous decisions which have truly catastrophic consequences. And I would say that unless because drug policy is not actually devolved, it is reserved. So I would say the UK government has got to say, look, if you can't show that you're capable of reducing these death rates, then we're going to have to take responsibility for it. And I genuinely mean that, because it's far too important for us to be politicised, and it's certainly too important to be headed up by an absolute inadequate like Humza Yousaf. So no, absolutely, I'd be right for that.
Let us not forget that whoever is selling us the methadone
to
kill our own citizens with is profiting.
Quite right.
So we've got a barrel right here at Hamilton Accies, and it's just a big, huge oil barrel, and we've got it painted green, and it says methadone on it, right? So that one huge oil drum was given to one person over the course of 10 years.
Yep.
It's staggering how much they give. It's unbelievable. We've only just scratched the surface of this, and we know that the numbers this year are of grave concern.
Yeah,
the numbers this year are.
It's the thing. If you have something to say, please.
Off the Richter scale.
Yeah,
it's a terrible situation for families and everyone involved in it. Addiction is a disaster, and the more help people can get themselves addicted for whatever reason. But the issue is that these people need help to get off.
Absolutely right.
The government isn't helping them. No. So,
if anyone out there is struggling, please do. You can come to the Hamilton Accies, come direct to me, and we'll get you in with the recovery groups.
That's good. That's great. And please do take Niall up on that offer if you.
Because I know that's a genuine offer from Niall, guys. So please, indeed.
It's very deeply involved. Now, coming up, Niall's going to talk about that part of political politics.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Oh, right, gentlemen. So this week we were all treated to the latest production from SNP HQ. And it's probably the worst party political broadcast that's ever been created in existence. And Mark, if you would be so kind.
Well, I'm going to play it, but I don't know if the sound's going to work. So if not, what I'm going to do is it's got subtitles, so you can read them out now. I don't know if you can see them.
Okay. All right, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Right, so let's give this a go.
This is Betty. She's going to help us answer the question.
This is Betty. She's going to help us answer the question. Oh, here's a Tory. Right. Show us how far you can trust the Tories. See, how mental is this? There you have it. You can't trust. You can trust the Tory about as far as you can throw them.
Isn't that just hilarious? Thank you for that.
Oh yes, hilarious.
I think it was better than your voiceover.
I know. Well, I did plan on recreating this. I was going to buy all the same guys' clays and get a Betty of my own. This is just outrageous. I mean, and see, when I was watching it, right, I was saying to myself, this could be about the SNP. Their own party political broadcast attacking the Tories could have been about themselves, you know.
Yep.
And they basically, and then the pandemic came. Oh, and they're blaming the Tories for that. What's going on? You know, and with the corruption angle, you know, they keep going after the UK Tory party with the corruption angle. Hello,
Yep.
Page and Dr. Phil, the SNP have got no right, zero right, to point the finger at anyone. Zero right at all. None. And that's just dumbfounded, you know. I'll tell you right now, you know, I trust Nicola Sturgeon. I trust her. I trust her to ruin our public services. You know, I trust her to continue indoctrinating our kids. I trust her to hire a battalion of spin doctors. And I trust her to cover up scandals. And I trust her to send jobs abroad. And I trust her to bring Scotland back into the Stone Age. That's what I trust her. You know, don't trust a Tory. How about don't trust Nicola Sturgeon?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing. When I watched this video or broadcast, the first thing I was thinking was, well, okay, you don't like the Tories, but what can you do about it?
Quite.
And
Nothing.
so I actually made a version of it, and I put a new ending on it, which basically said, it said, if you want the Tories out, why would you vote for a party that can't get independence and can't form a government? This is the thing.
It's so true, man. It's so true.
It goes back to the same formula we always say. If you want to have a change of the government in Westminster, don't vote for a regional-only novelty party, which only stands 59 candidates, because you're not going to win 326 seats with 59 candidates, guys. So sooner or later, the Scottish public will get fed up with voting for these people. Sooner or later. Sooner, hopefully.
Morris with some great comments. You know, every law they've made focuses on control, not trusting parents. You know, I trust them to centralise and control us more. That's what I trust them. You know, the fact that they're putting the trust angle out there is unbelievable. Yeah. They cannot point fingers. The SNP are a party that is defanged. They cannot attack anyone. They have no right to attack anyone. They're defanged, and it's time for all the parties to go after them.
Well, you know, it's this thing, you see this all the time when you criticise someone on Twitter or on social media, then they're, nationalists, and then they always say, you're a Tory. And they say, and a lot of our followers, a lot of them are not Tories at all. We're a cross-party organisation. We've got loads of Labour followers, loads of Lib Dems as well. And and it's just this idea that everyone you hate is a Tory. You know, it's like they had no consideration. And you sometimes say to them, well, you know, there are other parties you can vote for. You know, if you want to make a change, you can vote for the Lib Dems, you can vote for Labour. And they go, Labour, red Tories. You're like, tell us a policy that they have that's exactly the same. Exactly. The only one they can say is that they don't want an independence referendum. But, you know, that's it. You know, every other policy is completely different. It's just
it's madness.
The most important message of the night, Gordon Richards. We are very well aware of the upcoming football match, and our timing is being adjusted accordingly. So stick with us.
And to be fair, he says anything serious to say, lads. The Rangers are coming on soon. And to be fair, we've covered all the serious segments, and we're moving on to the best part of the week. So you're free to go and watch your.
No, stick with me here.
We'll
finish in time. We'll finish in time. Honestly,
I think we're going to finish in time tonight. We'll be doing.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, we will. For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. What about this broadcast? No, a load of nonsense, really.
Yep.
It was so cringeworthy.
It's pretty much like most Scottish TV output, embarrassingly amateur, not funny in the slightest, cliched, looks like it was written in about 4 minutes, and just appalling production values. Nothing redeeming about it, whatever. Just the only thing that you could say about it is it was uniformly bad. That's all you could say. It was just awful.
Yeah, they had some guy said it was like something from Monty Python.
Dan Wootton did go off on them on TV News,
and that's unusual.
It's crazy. Who signed this off?
Yeah, here's the thing, Dan Wootton. I've got this actually on here. They did the poll. Does the SNP's new attack add stoke hatred against the Tories? And 90% said yes, of course it does.
Absolutely,
they've not got anything else to offer, but Tory hate, and even Nicola Sturgeon. That's what motivated her to become a nationalist, was hate of the Tories. It's the underlying thing that drives them, most of them, really. Yeah. And if they want this idea of, we want a state, one-party state, where there are no Tories. And we discussed this last week. We said, well, you know, if they all say you can vote for whoever you like after independence, you're like, well, is that really what you want? You go, no, No.
Somebody just made me chuckle. And Janie Godley signed it off. Tommy Mowat says, honestly.
I was sure Janie Godley didn't play Betty.
I know.
Well, it's best we talk about, the least we talk about Janie, the better.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
moving on. We are coming up for the highlight of the week. It's the amazing Zoomer. And I believe David is going to start this evening.
I'm going to start us off this week. My nomination this week is an old friend of the show, Bromley Mike Russell. So this week, Bromley Mike travelled seriously north, all the way to Arbroath, where he appeared at an AUOB rally. That, of course, is all under one Brawley, because there are so few of them these days. And Bromley Mike said when asked, what will he be doing? He said, I will do what I've spent the last 40 years doing, spending every waking hour trying to break up the United Kingdom. Well, what an admission of a life of total waste and utter failures. So for his lack of self-awareness and his candid admission that his entire career has achieved precisely nothing, my candidate for Zoomer of the Week is Bromley's favourite son, Mike Russell.
Well, what about this Arbroath rally? They were trying to say there were 3,000 people there.
Can't boots there.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, guys.
We had a clip up of a guy, a guy who was there who was singing a song. Said, "Send the English, to get the English off our lands." And we put out basically saying, well, if you'd been up there and been singing, get the blacks off our lands, get the Jews off our lands, get them Mexicans, get any ethnic minority or the Asians off our lands, you'd be in handcuffs and off to the cells straight away.
Absolutely right.
It's acceptable that at these all under one brain cell marches that this kind of bigotry is applauded. Actually, not just it's a side issue. It's the main entertainment of what's going on there. And
they live and breathe the hate. They live and breathe it. It's their very lifeblood. It's insane.
I think we can see, though, I think when ordinary people look at these marches and they see these people and they've got their saltires everywhere and they're waving their flags and they've got those wee hats on with the feathers and all this type of stuff. And a lot of people just look at that and go, who are these marches?
Exactly.
Really?
And coincidentally, Braveheart played the night before and all that. It's just
really
nuts. It's totally nuts. And you're hearing there's infighting between the SNP and Alba at these marches. They can't even get along with each other.
It's shocking, I think. And that's the thing. This casual bigotry is something that we really have to get rid of in Scotland. I mean,
absolutely right. And you hear the SNP talk about, they've singled out the Irish racism as an issue in its own right. They're trying to stoke this idea that if you're in any way being bigoted towards Catholics, you're really an anti-Irish racist. Yet they blithely state open prejudice against English people every single day. No, hang on, is anti-Irish racism unacceptable? Anti-English racism perfectly okay? I mean,
it's unacceptable. And I had to block this guy. He's like, I said, Flower of Scotland is a racist dirge, anti-English dirge, basically saying to English, celebrating a battle hundreds of years ago that nobody here knows anything about. It doesn't, and he's like, oh no, this is a great thing to sing at the rugby. Like,
come on.
So I know he was saying, but I love Flower of Scotland. I'd say, so you sing an anti-English song and you say you're unionist. I'm like, come on.
To be fair, I grew up with that song as well. I know it is the national anthem. I don't really care about it. It's just a song.
It's just a song, but it's
the thing when you don't care about casual racism. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If imagine we had a song that was like, send the P word for people from Asian descent back.
Janie Godwin,
you wouldn't be singing that, right?
You can't
sing stuff against the Jews or anything like that. So
exactly. There's no such thing as good racism. There isn't. Racism's racism. And if you're gonna look down on people or make comments about people as in general, as a race or as a nationality, that's racist, guys. Who the target is. A really good question from God to mention this before it goes off. As a Scot living in England for 40 years, he demands to have a vote if there is another independence referendum. we do too. There's not going to be one, but in the event that there was one, we would demand that Scots who are expat get a vote, because you're absolutely right.
That's right, because it affects their identity. It was one of the issues that when I was away, now I'd been away for really a long time, but it was a concern for us being in the States and saying, well, what passport we're going to have, how's our identity going to change, all this type of stuff. And I think for people who certainly, people who've been away a long time, perhaps it could be restricted, but it's maybe understandable. But people living in England, just across the border, should absolutely have a vote on it. Moving on, we are going to go to next. Okay, me up. So this Zoomer of the week is going to be Irvine Welsh.
Yes.
We talked about Trainspotting
Yes.
a little bit earlier on. Now, Irvine was a wee bit upset, today, not today, a few days ago, when the Scottish Conservatives decided to use the Trainspotting, the Trainspotting speech, Choose Life, Trainspotting, as their thing. You can see what he said about it up there.
Yep.
But I thought that this is actually quite good from the Scottish Conservatives, because generally their messaging is, we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, messaging has been quite poor. And this thing really got, annoying Irvine Welsh is a major achievement, I think, in this case. And it got to the point where it's actually, I think it was, in the Daily Mail and made big headlines. And so that's, annoying all the right people. And here's an article, a letter someone wrote in. What does Irvine Welsh, from the comfort of his Miami sun lounger, add to any discussion about life in Scotland today? He hasn't lived in Scotland.
If he's tweeting that for a sun lounger, get
Exactly.
over in Miami. It's just bizarre. I loved their image. I sort of, I would have preferred if Douglas Ross had just said it. We don't need a graphic. If
That
Douglas
would have been
Ross
good.
could have just performed it. Please, Douglas, please just do it. If you're listening, that would have been more powerful than just the image.
Yeah. But it was a good start anyway. Of course, Irvine's on there, like he's saying, he's going, oh, I'm no nationalist. I'm not a Scottish nationalist of any kind. But in the article we wrote, I wrote about him not that long ago, which was called Scotland's Lost Socialists. This was a quote he said here: I'm for Scottish independence as a mechanism for breaking up the UK. And I'm for English independence and Welsh independence. The real fear of elites in England is that if Scotland is independent, at a stroke, there's no royal family, no House of Lords, no Eton, and people in England are going to say, we'll have some of that. But it's just, as I'm saying in the article, it's just cherry-picking stuff. For him, the UK is the House of Lords, Eton, and the royal family, not the people of Liverpool, Harrogate, and Birmingham. And that's the people he should be looking after, not some idea of
elitism,
that Scottish nationalism, which is a vile creed, is a way to get to some kind of social justice. When you vote, we say this all the time. How many times do we say it? If you vote for nationalism, all you get is more nationalism. You don't get socialism. You don't get your nirvana. You just get more of the horrible stuff that we've had for the past 15 years. So, Irvine, you are my Zoomer of the week. Anyway, so next up. No, I was going to tell us.
Okay. Another week comes in. I'm no doing Nicola Sturgeon this week, gents.
Oh my God.
Nicola Sturgeon this week. Right? My Zoomer of the week this week is Humza Yousaf. Okay? So I picked him because he's been eerily quiet. I mean, I've never seen Humza Yousaf so quiet. He's conspicuously absent for the ongoing devastation in our Scottish NHS. And I mean devastation. People, that's totally under our control, totally under our auspices of the Scottish Government. It's going down so rapidly that you think it was on an electronic scooter. Nurses are leaving in droves. Patients are waiting hours. Patients are dying, waiting hours. And the whole thing is just a gigantic cluster mess. resulting in actual death. I mean, without a doubt, Humza Yousaf deserves Zoomer of the Week. It's unbelievable. Just months ago, I make a video saying that a guy waited 40 hours, it was. An old man in Glasgow waited 40 hours for an ambulance and died as a result. That's this man's fault. That's this man's fault. And he's still there. He's still working there. He's no moved position. And he's done nothing to improve the situation. Nothing. It's only getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, there's just he just makes a lot of noise and nothing happens, you know.
Absolutely.
That's the main thing. There was that whole thing about the nurseries, that the racism at the nursery that was brought up.
Yep.
One of the commenters.
He's too busy trying to get his wife elected. His wife's running in this election campaign. Can you believe this?
She is.
You know, it's unbelievable.
As is Stuart Hosey's wife, let's not forget, Stuart Hosey and Angus MacNeil. Remember, they shared that English girlfriend. She married one of them. Now she's standing for election. Lovely.
It's
There's a lot going on there.
Goodness.
Right. Okay.
Nepotism is ripping out.
It's definitely time to make our decision now. You at home, of course, can make your own decision on what you're. And I think we're going to make a wee graphic of whoever it is and send them a wee Zoomer of the week. You are Zoomer of the week.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Just to rile them up.
That's what you do.
Brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, David, why did you decide today?
Today, okay, I will decide for rather serious reasons because of the appalling drug death rates, which I touched upon earlier, which is, of course, under Humza's command these days. It has to be you, Mr. Yousaf. You are Zoomer of the Week.
Zoomer of the Week.
Oh, thanks very much. I mean, a lot of great comments coming in. There was one, Alexander King. We'll sort of address this before we fire away. So do you guys believe, as I've never heard any commentator talking about the sums of wasted money being talked about in the UK terms, i.e. 586 million wasted in the Lochaber smelter, avidly in real terms multiplied by 10 as we're a tenth of the size of the UK. So a tenth of the UK picks up the tab. Please reply. So it's quite it's quite a hard question to understand.
I think
this scandal's just about to open up.
Yeah, it's just coming up. It's one of many scandals that's coming up. We will be touching that as a little bit more. I think the ferry scandal's got a little bit more to run, and other ones so on.
But I mean, Alexander, you're quite right. This is a festering sore, and this is no way the story. And the sums wasted in this could well dwarf what's happened.
Anything that Scotland's ever seen. It could dwarf everything.
Exactly. And the point he's making here is, I think, as Scotland's a tenth the size of the UK, would you extrapolate that to say this is the equivalent of a 5.8 billion loss incurred in UK? You could make that point, indeed. Yes,
you could indeed make that point. Yeah.
So for sure, and this is something we will explore more fully. But there's a lot to come out on this story. But as Mark has said, there's still a lot of meat on the bones.
Mileage. There's a lot of mileage on the ferry scandal. We've still got moon miles on that. I mean, I don't think we should be moving to scandal to scandal. We should just pin them down. There should be one person in Holyrood asking, so actually, how many people work in Ferguson shipyard? Is it 300? I've still not got the answer. Nicola Sturgeon's blocked me. You know what I mean? So I didn't get to see. So is there actually 300 jobs there? Don't think so. We need somebody asking this question every single week until we get to the bottom of it.
Right.
Well, we'll get more. There'll be more scandals. We know that for sure coming up. So we're going to wrap up tonight. First of all, we're going to see the lady behind the chats. Is
Mary,
the wonderful Mary.
Hi, Mary.
And how are the comments
Hello,
going?
everyone. Good evening. Thank you for all your comments, and we'll be back next week. So please come back and make your comments then. Thursday, 7 p.m. Thank you.
Great. You stay with us for a minute as well. Okay, so thanks you all to the donors and everyone watching. We, if you can, please tell your friends about us. We are the only place where you can hear this type of discussion. Where else can you hear it? It's not happening anywhere else. This is the place.
This is it, Mark. This is it.
We're doing it. We're actually talking about these things, and we're trying to go through the issues and understand them. Other places you see people talking about is Indy Deid on the national news. No, you don't even see it there. You never see it in STV or anywhere else. Big thank you to the donors. If you can, please support us with a donation. There's links around. If you go to the Majority's website, there's a big donate button. Anything's appreciated, helps us. Thanks to our partners, UK Union Voice, United Against Separation, and we have Thought of the Week. That earlier on today, someone said to me, well, I hope that there's going to be independence in my lifetime. And basically, hope, I say, hope isn't a path, it isn't a plan, it isn't popular will, it isn't reality. There's no hope. There's no hope of a second referendum. And they need to move on.
Abandon hope.
Abandon hope. That's should be. A big thank you to you, David, and Niall.
And of course, Mary for handling all the comments.
Yep.
I hope everyone had a wonderful time watching. And if you're watching the game, good luck.
Yes, good luck as well. Yeah, thanks everybody. Great interaction as always. Good. I thought there were really good topics tonight. Some really serious stuff in there. We joke about it a bit, but these guys have got to be stopped. They've got to be stopped. Will it happen in May? Probably not. They'll probably get lots of votes in May, but sooner or later people will realise it's a waste of time voting.
It's over the top. It's coming over the top.
Yes,
it's collapsing under its own weight.
Yes.
Thank you all for watching. We will see you again. Thank you for your comments. We'll see you again next Thursday at 7 p.m.
Indeed.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Have a great week.
You.
See you
Thanks,
later.
everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.